Jack Morrison sat in the metal chair with his hands bound behind his back. The room was cold and smelled like chemicals he could not name. Around him stood creatures that looked like nightmares made real. They were tall, nearly 8 feet from head to foot, with bodies covered in dark scales that seemed to drink the light. Their hands ended in claws that could tear through steel, and their mouths held rows of teeth like knives. These were the Krell, and they were laughing at him. Jack was 67 years old. His hair had gone gray years ago, and his face showed every hard year he had lived. His body was not strong like it used to be. His hands shook, sometimes, when he held things. To the Krell warriors around him, he looked like something that should have died long ago. Commander Vexlar walked in circles around the chair. He was the leader of this ship, a warrior who had fought in 50 battles and won them all. Scars covered his scaled body like badges of honor. He looked at Jack the way a cat looks at a mouse before it strikes. The ship they were on was called the Devourer's Pride. It was a Krell warship, one of 12 that had ambushed Jack's research vessel 3 days ago. The attack came without warning near the edge of human space. Most of the crew made it to the escape pods and got away. Jack stayed behind, to buy them time. He fired the ship's weapons until they ran dry, then set the engines to overload. He only got into an escape pod when the ship started to come apart. The Krell caught him anyway. Now he sat alone in this room while the Krell decided what to do with him. They had expected to capture human warriors, strong young soldiers who would put up a good fight. Instead, they got an old man who could barely stand without his back hurting. Vexlar stopped walking and stood in front of Jack. When he spoke, a small device on his chest changed his words into English. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "You are human," Vexlar said. It was not a question. "We have studied your kind. You are weak, soft. You live short lives and break easily. Yet you spread across the stars like you own them." Jack said nothing. He kept his eyes on the floor. "The Krell are predators," Vexlar continued. He sounded proud. "We evolved from the greatest hunters on our world. Our reflexes are 3 times faster than yours. Our strength can bend metal. Our eyes see in the dark like it is day. We have conquered 17 species in 300 years. We have never lost a war. Never even lost a major battle." The other Krell in the room made clicking sounds with their throats. Jack had learned this was how they showed agreement. Vexlar's chest swelled with pride as he spoke. "Look at you," the Krell commander said. He waved a clawed hand at Jack. "You are old, weak. Your species sends warriors like this to fight us? This is what humanity offers? No wonder you hide behind your treaties and your laws. You know you cannot face true predators." Jack slowly raised his head. His eyes were tired, but they were not afraid. He looked at Vexlar for a long moment before he spoke. "You are predators," Jack said quietly. His voice was rough from not drinking water for hours. "But we are supreme predators." The room went silent for 3 seconds. Then every Krell in the room started making that clicking sound again, but louder this time. They were laughing. Vexlar's mouth opened to show all his teeth. His whole body shook with amusement. "Supreme predators," Vexlar repeated. He turned to the other Krell warriors. "Did you hear this? The old human thinks his kind are greater hunters than the Krell. This fragile creature who can barely move believes he is superior to us." The laughter grew louder. One of the Krell guards, a female named Charlix, stepped closer to get a better look at Jack. She tilted her head like she was trying to understand a puzzle. Vexlar leaned down until his face was close to Jack's. His breath was hot and smelled like meat. "Explain yourself, human. Tell me how your weak species could possibly be supreme predators. I want to hear this before I decide whether to kill you quickly or slowly." Jack looked up at the Krell commander. Despite everything, despite being tied up and surrounded by creatures that could kill him in seconds, Jack smiled. It was a small smile, sad and knowing. the smile of someone who has seen things that cannot be unseen. You really want to know? Jack asked. Yes, Vexlar said. Humor me before you die. Jack took a deep breath. His shoulders straightened a little, even though the movement made his back hurt. When he spoke again, his voice was stronger. Then I'll tell you a story, Jack said. I'll tell you about Earth, about where humans come from, about what made us. And when I'm done, you'll understand why attacking us was the biggest mistake your species ever made. Vexlar made a gesture with his hand. The other Krell warriors moved closer, forming a circle around Jack's chair. They wanted to hear what this old human had to say. They wanted to laugh at him some more. Speak then, Vexlar said. Tell us your story. Make it good, human. It may be the last thing you ever say. Jack nodded slowly. He looked at each of the Krell in turn, meeting their eyes without fear. Then he began to speak, his voice steady and calm, like a teacher explaining something important to students who did not yet understand. Earth, Jack said, is not like other worlds. Most species evolve on planets that are kind to them, safe, predictable. Earth was never kind to us. Earth spent millions of years trying to kill every human that ever lived. And the fact that I'm sitting here right now, on a ship light years from home, means that Earth failed. The Krell stopped laughing. Something in Jack's voice made them pay attention. Charlix moved to a computer terminal on the wall and started pulling up files about Earth. Her claws moved quickly across the controls. You say you're predators because you're strong and fast, Jack continued. That's good. That works on your world. But humans didn't evolve to be strong or fast. We evolved to be something worse. We evolved to never give up. Ever. We evolved to follow our prey until it dropped dead from exhaustion. We evolved to keep hunting even when we were hurt, even when we were dying, even when every other predator on the planet said it was time to quit. Vexlar's smile was gone now. He stood up straight, his full height towering over the old human. You expect me to believe that? That humans are dangerous because you are stubborn? Jack shifted in his chair, trying to find a more comfortable position. The metal dug into his back, but he ignored it. He had felt worse pain in his life. Much worse. The Krell warriors stood around him in silence now. They were no longer laughing. Let me tell you what Earth is really like, Jack said. His voice echoed slightly in the metal room. Most worlds have one or two predators at the top. Maybe a big cat. Maybe something with teeth and claws. But Earth had hundreds. Thousands. If you count the ones that lived in the ocean or flew in the sky. And humans were not at the top when we started. We were in the middle. We were prey. Vexlar crossed his arms over his scaled chest. Then how did you survive? How did weak creatures like you become the dominant species? Because we learned to run, Jack said simply. Not run away. Run after. You see, most predators on Earth hunt in one of two ways. They either ambush their prey, jumping out fast and killing quick, or they chase for a short time until they catch up. But humans did something different. We ran our prey down over days. Sometimes, weeks. We would pick an animal, any animal, and we would follow it. When it ran, we ran. When it stopped to rest, we kept coming. When it tried to hide, we found it. And eventually, that animal would be so tired, so exhausted, that it would just lie down and die. Then, we would eat it. Charlix made a sound of disbelief. That is not efficient hunting. Why not kill quickly? Because we couldn't, Jack answered. We were not strong enough to kill quickly. We were not fast enough to catch up. All we had was endurance. The ability to keep going when everything else stopped. And that turned out to be enough. More than enough. Because once we learned we could outlast anything, we started applying that to everything else. He paused, taking a breath. His throat was dry, but Vexlar had not offered him water. That was fine. Jack had gone longer without water before. Humans did not just hunt animals, Jack continued. We hunted each other. For thousands of years, we fought wars. Not small fights over territory. Real wars. Wars that killed millions. Wars that lasted so long that children were born into them, grew up in them, and died in them without ever knowing peace. Vexlar's eyes narrowed. We have studied your wars. They were brutal, yes, but the Krell have fought many battles too. This does not make you supreme. Jack smiled that sad smile again. Your battles last days, maybe weeks. Human wars lasted years, decades, centuries. We fought a war called the 100 Years' War. Can you guess how long it lasted? None of the Krell answered. 116 years, Jack said. 5 generations of humans were born, fought, and died in that one war. We had another conflict, called the Crusades. That lasted almost 200 years. And those were just the old wars. Before we had modern weapons. Before we learned to split atoms and poison air and turn diseases into weapons. Charlix was back at her computer, pulling up more files. Her claws moved faster now, searching through databases. What she found made her scales darken further. Commander, she said quietly, the human speaks truth. Their military history is extensive. They have fought constantly throughout their recorded civilization. The weapons they developed. She trailed off, unable to finish. What about them? Vexlar demanded. They created weapons so terrible that they made laws against using them. Charlix said. Chemical weapons that dissolve lungs. Biological weapons that spread plague. Nuclear weapons that can burn entire cities in seconds. They made these weapons, agreed they were too horrible to use, and then kept them anyway. Quote, weapons. Quote Hecknerferzer. Jack nodded. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Humans are good at killing. Too good. We spent our entire history getting better at it. Every war taught us new lessons. Every battle showed us new ways to hurt each other. And we remembered all of it. We wrote it down. We studied it. We taught it to our children so they could get even better at it. Vexlar walked closer to Jack again. His claws flexed, opening and closing. If humans are so dangerous, why have they not conquered the galaxy? Why do you hide in your small corner of space and make treaties with everyone? Because we're trying to be better, Jack said. We spent 10,000 years learning to kill. Now, we're trying to learn to build instead, to create instead of destroy, to explore instead of conquer. We made ourselves too good at violence, and it almost killed us several times. So now we try to be good at other things. Then you are weak, Vexlar said. You deny your nature. No, Jack replied, and his voice got harder. We control our nature. There's a difference. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Humans learned that lesson the hard way. But make no mistake, Commander, just because we choose not to be violent doesn't mean we forgot how. It just means we're saving it for when we really need it. The room was silent for a long moment. Then one of the younger Krell warriors spoke up. His voice was uncertain. What about your physical abilities? You are slow, weak. How can you fight beings like us who are superior in every way? Jack looked at the young warrior. You think you're superior? Let me tell you about human endurance. A human soldier can march 20 miles a day carrying half their body weight in equipment. They can do this every day for months. Can you? The young Krell did not answer. Humans can survive in temperatures from -40 to +50 degrees, Jack continued. We have fought wars in frozen tundra and burning deserts. We have fought in jungles where the diseases killed more soldiers than the enemy did. We have fought in mountains so high that the air barely has oxygen. And we won those wars. All of them. He was speaking faster now, his voice stronger. You say you're faster than us? Fine. But humans don't need to be fast. We just need to be there when you get tired. You say you're stronger? Great. But humans build machines to be strong for us. We make tools. We make weapons. We make everything around us into something we can use to survive. You have claws and teeth, Jack said, staring directly at Vexlar. Humans have nuclear weapons. You have scales for armor. Humans have ships that can crack planets. You evolved to be predators on your world. Humans evolved to survive on a world that spent 4 billion years trying to kill everything that lived on it. We come from a death world, Commander, and it made us very, very good at not dying. Charlix pulled up another file. This one showed Earth's geological history. The climate changes, the ice ages, the meteor impacts, the volcanic eruptions. She stared at the screen in growing horror. Commander, she said, her voice shaking slightly. Their world. It has tried to wipe out all life, multiple times. Mass extinction events, ice ages that covered most of the planet, supervolcanoes. And somehow, human ancestors survived all of it. We did more than survive, Jack said. We thrived. Every disaster made us stronger. Every challenge made us smarter. When the ice came, we learned to make fire and clothing. When the big animals tried to eat us, we learned to hunt in groups. When diseases killed millions of us, the survivors became resistant. Earth kept trying to kill us, and we kept refusing to die. That's what makes us supreme predators. Not strength, not speed, just the absolute refusal to give up. 2 guards dragged Jack back to his cell. The room was small, barely large enough for him to lie down. The walls were metal and cold. There was no window, no light except for a dim glow from the ceiling. They threw him inside and locked the door behind him. Jack sat on the floor and leaned against the wall. His whole body hurt. He was too old for this kind of treatment. But that did not matter now. What mattered was what would happen next. He knew the Krell would not listen to his warnings. Predators never did. They always thought they were at the top until something bigger came along and showed them they were wrong. He closed his eyes and waited. On the command deck of the Devourer's Pride, Vexlar sat in his chair and stared at the star map in front of him. The invasion plan was already set. 12 Krell warships would attack 12 human colonies over the next 3 days. The attacks would be fast and brutal. The humans would surrender or die. That was how it always went. Except now, Vexlar felt something he had never felt before in his long military career. He felt uncertain. The old human's words kept playing in his mind. The way he spoke about Earth, about human history, about what his species could do when threatened. It all sounded like the desperate boasting of a defeated enemy. But there was something in the human's eyes, something that bothered Vexlar. The old man had not been afraid, not even a little. He had spoken like someone who knew a secret, like someone who had already won, and was just waiting for everyone else to figure it out. Vexlar shook his head. No. He was a Krell commander, with 50 victories behind him. He would not let one old human's words make him doubt himself. The invasion would proceed as planned. But Charlix was not so certain. After the interrogation, she went back to her station and started digging deeper into human records. The Krell Intelligence Service had files on humans, but they were basic. Species classification, technology level, military strength estimates. Nothing about culture, nothing about history, nothing about what made humans tick. She changed that. She accessed the Galactic database and pulled up everything she could find about Earth and humanity. What she discovered made her blood run cold. Human history was not like other species' histories. Most races had periods of conflict, followed by long periods of peace. Humans had conflict all the time. Even when they were not actively fighting wars, they were preparing for the next one. They trained soldiers. They built weapons. They ran simulations of battles that might never happen. War was woven into their culture so deeply that they could not seem to exist without it. She found records of human endurance that seemed impossible. In one war, human soldiers lived in trenches filled with mud and water for years. The conditions were so bad that many died from disease rather than combat, but they kept fighting anyway. In another war, humans fought in temperatures that would kill most species in hours. They wore special clothing and kept going. In yet another war, humans fought in jungles where the plants themselves were poisonous and the insects carried deadly diseases. And still they kept fighting. What disturbed Sharlix most were the human combat modifications. Most species fought with the bodies they were born with. Humans changed themselves. They injected drugs to make themselves stronger, faster, more alert. They replaced damaged body parts with mechanical versions that worked better than the originals. There were records of human soldiers who had been clinically dead and brought back to life multiple times. Records of pilots flying with broken bones. Records of commanders giving orders while missing limbs. Humans did not just fight until they died. They fought after they should have died. She pulled up human military doctrine and read through it carefully. The Krell had honor codes about warfare, rules about how to treat enemies, when to show mercy, how to conduct yourself in battle. Humans had the Geneva Conventions, but they were different. They were not rules about honor. They were rules about what was too terrible to do to other humans. And the list was long. Very long. Chemical weapons that burned lungs. Biological weapons that spread disease. Weapons that caused unnecessary suffering. The humans had used all of these against each other at some point and decided they were too horrible to use again. But they kept the knowledge. They kept the ability to make them, just in case. Sharlix found herself reading about a human concept called mutually assured destruction. During something called the Cold War, two human nations pointed enough nuclear weapons at each other to destroy their entire planet several times over. They stayed like that for decades, each side knowing that if they fired first, the other side would fire back, and everyone would die. And they accepted that. They lived with that reality every day for 50 years. What kind of species threatens to kill themselves and everyone they know just to make a point? She knew the answer now. A species of supreme predators. A species that would rather die than lose. Sharlix stood up and walked to Vexlar's quarters. She needed to tell him what she found. She needed to convince him to at least delay the invasion, to study humans more carefully before attacking them. She found Vexlar in his private chamber, reviewing the invasion plans one more time. He looked up when she entered. "Commander," Sharlix said, "I need to speak with you about the humans." Vexlar waved a clawed hand. "If this is about the Old One's warnings, do not bother. I have heard enough." "Please, Commander," she insisted. "I have been studying their records, their military history, their capabilities. I believe we are making a mistake." "A mistake?" Vexlar's voice grew cold. "The Krell do not make mistakes in war. We have fought for 3 centuries without a single defeat. Why should humans be different from the other 17 species we have conquered?" Sharlix pulled up a datapad and showed him what she had found. "Because they are different. Look at this. Human wars last decades. Their soldiers endure conditions that would kill our warriors in days. Their weapons technology is terrifying. They have created ways to kill that we never even imagined." Vexlar looked at the datapad, but his expression did not change. "They have never used these weapons against other species, only against themselves. This shows they are fractured, divided. They fight each other instead of presenting a united front. This makes them weaker. Or it makes them experienced," Sharlix countered. "They have spent thousands of years learning to fight the most dangerous opponent they could find, which was themselves. Now we are giving them a new target. You are afraid." Vexlar said flatly. "One old human spoke some words and now you are afraid. This is not worthy of a Krell warrior." If one signed his comedy as Lon, I am cautious, Charlix replied. There is a difference. The old human said something that bothers me. He said humans are trying to be better than they are, that they are trying to move past their violent nature. But he also said that when something threatens them, they remember what they really are. Commander, we are about to threaten them. We are about to remind them of what they are. Vexlar stood up, his full height towering over her. The Krell have never lost a war. We will not lose this one. Charlix wanted to argue more, but she could see it was useless. Vexlar had made his decision. The Krell way was to move forward, to attack, to conquer. Doubt was not part of their culture. Caution was seen as weakness. She saluted and left his quarters. As she walked back to her station, she made a decision. She would send a private message to the Krell homeworld. To the High Command, she would attach all the data she had found about humans and recommend that they proceed with extreme caution. Maybe someone higher up would listen, even if Vexlar would not. She sent the message and waited for a reply. It came 6 hours later. The response was brief and dismissive. The High Command saw no reason to delay the invasion. Human colonies were lightly defended. The Krell fleet would overwhelm them easily. Proceed as planned. Charlix felt something she had never felt before in her military career. She felt like they were making a terrible mistake. But she was a soldier. She would follow orders. She would fight when ordered to fight. But she would not forget what she had learned about humans. Later that night, she went to Jack's cell. The guard let her in without question. She outranked him. Jack was sitting against the wall with his eyes closed. He opened them when he heard her enter. Come to laugh at me some more? He asked. No, Charlix said. I came to ask you a question. Ask away. If humans are supreme predators, she said carefully. If you are as dangerous as you claim, why have you not conquered the galaxy? Why do you stay in your small territory and make treaties with everyone? Why do you let other species exist? Jack looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood up, slowly because his joints hurt. Because we're trying to be better than we are, he said. We spent our entire history learning to kill. We got very good at it. Too good. We almost killed ourselves several times. Nuclear war, environmental collapse, engineered diseases. We came close to extinction more times than I can count, and every time it was our own fault. He walked closer to the bars of his cell. So, we decided to change. We decided to use all that intelligence and determination and stubbornness for something other than killing. We started building instead of destroying, exploring instead of conquering, creating instead of taking. We made ourselves better. But, he continued, and his voice got harder, just because we choose to be peaceful doesn't mean we forgot how to be violent. It just means we save it for when we really need it, and your commander is about to give us a reason to need it. What do you mean? Charlix asked, though she thought she already knew. Your fleet is going to attack New Boston, Jack said. I heard your guards talking about it. New Boston is a colony world with 500,000 people. Families, children, people who have never hurt anyone. And you're going to attack them to prove that the Krell are superior. He gripped the bars of his cell. When you do that, you're not just attacking a colony. You're attacking Huma the Krell fleet, dropped out of hyperspace, above New Boston exactly on schedule. 12 massive warships appeared in the planet's orbit, like dark clouds blocking the sun. On the surface, alarms began to scream. New Boston was an agricultural colony. Peaceful and quiet. Most of its 500,000 residents were farmers, teachers, doctors, and engineers. They grew food for other human colonies and researched better ways to terraform worlds. They had 2 small defense stations in orbit and 6 patrol ships. Against 12 Krell warships, they had no chance. At least, that was what the Krell thought. The defense stations did not try to run. They did not call for surrender. The moment the Krell ships appeared, both stations opened fire with everything they had. Missiles streaked across space. Energy beams cut through the darkness. The Krell fleet returned fire, expecting the stations to pull back or at least try to defend themselves. Instead, the stations kept firing until their weapons ran dry. Then they did something the Krell did not expect. They turned their engines to full power and aimed themselves at the nearest Krell ships. 2 defense stations, each crewed by 50 humans, slammed into Krell warships at full speed. The impacts tore through armor plating and ripped into engine rooms. Both Krell ships went dark, crippled, and drifting. 100 human crew members died in those impacts. They died buying time for the people below. Vexaler watched from his command chair, his claws digging into the armrests. "What are they doing?" he growled. "Why sacrifice themselves? Why not retreat?" Analyzing their communications, one of his officers said, "They are broadcasting a message to the planet. They say they are buying time. Time for what? They cannot hope to win." On the planet's surface, the colonists were not running to bunkers or trying to evacuate. They were organizing. Every person who had ever served in the military, no matter how long ago, pulled out their old weapons from storage. People who had never fired a gun before started learning. The colony's leaders coordinated defense plans. Teachers turned their schools into command centers. Doctors prepared hospitals for casualties. Engineers rigged up improvised explosives from farming equipment and mining supplies. A teacher named Greg Palmer stood in his chemistry classroom with 20 other colonists. None of them were soldiers. Greg taught science to children. The woman next to him, Betty Cross, ran a bakery. The man on his other side, Henry Wu, was a mechanic who fixed farming robots. "Can you really make bombs from this stuff?" Betty asked, looking at the chemicals Greg had pulled from the school's supply room. "Yes," Greg said, "and I'm going to show you how. We have maybe 6 hours before they land troops. We need to make as many as we can." "I never thought I'd be making bombs in a classroom," Henry said with a weak laugh. "Neither did I," Greg replied. "But my grandfather fought in the border wars. He told me stories. He told me what to do if something like this ever happened. He said humans are good at 2 things, building and destroying. Right now, we need to be good at destroying." In orbit, the 6 patrol ships were fighting a guerrilla war. They hid in the debris field from the destroyed defense stations, darting out to fire at Krell ships before ducking back into cover. The Krell were faster and stronger. But the human pilots knew their territory. They used every rock, every piece of wreckage, every shadow to their advantage. One patrol ship, piloted by a woman named Lisa Grant, was down to her last missiles. Her ship was damaged, leaking air, and her co-pilot was dead. She keyed her comm system and broadcast in the clear, knowing the Krell could hear her. "This is Lisa Grant of the patrol ship Morning Star. I'm out of missiles and out of time, but I'm not out of fight. For New Boston. For humanity. We're buying time. They're coming." She turned her ship toward the nearest Krell warship and pushed her engines to maximum. The Krell ship tried to shoot her down, but Lisa was a good pilot. She dodged and weaved, closing the distance. At the last second, she overloaded her ship's reactor. The explosion tore a hole in the Krell ship's side. Lisa died instantly, but she took 70 Krell warriors with her. Vexlar slammed his fist on his armrest. "These humans are insane. They throw their lives away for nothing." "Not for nothing, Commander," Charlotte said quietly. She was monitoring human communications. "They keep saying they are buying time. They believe help is coming." "Help from where?" "Their nearest military base is 4 days away at maximum speed. We will have conquered this colony long before then." But Charlix had a bad feeling. She remembered what the old human had said. She remembered the data she had found about human persistence, about how they never gave up. "Commander, I recommend we proceed with extreme caution." "Caution?" Vexlar's voice was angry now. "We have already lost 3 ships to these desperate tactics. I will not show caution to prey. Land the troops. Take the planet." Show these humans what happens when they resist the Krell. The landing ships launched from the Krell fleet. Thousands of Krell warriors descended on New Boston's surface. They expected to face an unorganized, terrified population. They expected easy victory. They got neither. The Krell troops landed in the colony's main city, a place called Riverside. The streets were empty. Buildings stood silent. For a moment, the Krell thought the humans had fled. Then the bombs started going off. Greg Palmer's improvised explosives had been placed all over the city. Every street corner, every building entrance, every likely path the Krell would take. As the Krell troops advanced, explosions tore through their ranks. Buildings collapsed, streets cratered, fire spread. The Krell adapted quickly. They split into smaller groups and moved more carefully. They used their sensors to detect explosives. But then the humans adapted too. Snipers appeared on rooftops. Not military snipers, but farmers and teachers and shop owners who happened to own hunting rifles. They fired a few shots and then disappeared. The Krell sent troops to clear the buildings, and more traps went off. The humans were turning every structure into a weapon. A squad of Krell warriors kicked down the door of a hospital, thinking it would be full of weak, injured humans. Instead, they found it rigged to explode. A doctor named Susan Walsh stood in the doorway with her hand on a trigger. She was 53 years old and had spent her entire career saving children's lives. There are 300 patients in the lower levels, Susan said calmly, speaking through a translator. If you come in, I will collapse this whole wing. You will die, and they will live. Your choice. The Krell squad leader laughed. You will die too, human. I know, Susan said, and she pushed the trigger. The explosion killed Susan, the entire Krell squad, and brought down the hospital wing. But the lower levels held. 300 patients, mostly children, survived. Susan's sacrifice bought them time. This happened again and again. Humans fighting from every angle, using tactics the Krell had never seen, trading their lives for time, for each other, for the hope that help was coming. Vexlar watched the battle reports with growing frustration. His troops were taking casualties. Not many, but more than expected. The colony should have fallen in an hour. It had been 8 hours, and his forces were still fighting street by street. What is wrong with these humans? He demanded. Why do they not surrender? Why do they not run? We are clearly superior. They are buying time, Charlix repeated. The question is, for what? Then the alarms on the Devourer's Pride started screaming. The hyperspace sensors detected incoming ships. Many ships. Charlix pulled up the readings and felt her blood go cold. Commander, we have 37 human warships dropping out of hyperspace. They are military vessels, heavy cruisers, destroyers, and one carrier. That's impossible, Vexlar said. Their nearest base is 4 days away. Apparently not, Charlix replied. She checked the timestamps. They have been in transit for 9 hours. They launched the moment our fleet entered human space. Vexlar understood then. The humans had been tracking his fleet the whole time. They knew where he was going. They mobilized everything in range the second he crossed into their territory. The colonists below had not been buying time. They had been holding the line until their military arrived. The human fleet did not send a message, did not demand surrender, did not give the Krell a chance to talk. They simply opened fire. The battle was brutal. The Krell had superior individual ship strength, but the Krell fleet limped to their staging base, a military installation on a barren moon at the edge of their territory. 5 ships had been destroyed at New Boston. 3 more were so badly damaged they could barely move. The remaining 4 ships, including the Devourer's Pride, were hurt but functional. Vexlar sat in his command chair and stared at nothing. For the first time in his long military career, he had retreated. He had run from battle. The shame of it burned worse than any physical wound. We will regroup here, he said, his voice hollow. Repair what we can. The nearest Krell battle fleet is 3 days away. When they arrive, we will return to human space and finish what we started. Charlix looked at her sensors and felt fear again. Commander, the human fleet is tracking us. They are following our hyperspace trail. Let them come, Vexlar said, but his voice lacked conviction. We have defensive positions here. They will break themselves against our fortifications. How long until they arrive? One of the officers asked. 3 days, Charlix said. Maybe 4 if they stop to resupply. 8 hours later, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace around the moon. Vexlar stood up so fast his chair fell over. How? How did they get here so quickly? They didn't stop, Charlix said, checking the readings. They just followed us. She paused, her scales going pale. Commander, they brought more ships. This is not the same fleet from New Boston. This is a different group. The human fleet now numbered 53 ships. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and several types of vessels the Krell database could not identify. They surrounded the moon in a perfect formation, cutting off all escape routes. Then, a transmission came through on all channels. It was video. The Krell could see inside a human ship, and standing in front of the camera was the old man. Jack Morrison was no longer in restraints. He wore a clean uniform and stood between 2 human soldiers who looked at him with respect. Commander Vexlar, Jack said, his voice clear and strong. We need to talk. Vexlar's claws extended involuntarily. How did you escape? I didn't, Jack said. Your ship was boarded during the retreat from New Boston. 12 of your crew are dead. The rest are locked in their quarters. I'm transmitting from your own ship right now. But that's not important. What's important is what happens next. Jack took a step closer to the camera. You wanted to know what makes humans supreme predators. Let me explain it one more time. Slowly. So you understand. When you hunt, you track prey until you catch it or give up. When humans hunt, we track prey until it is extinct. You fight battles. We fight wars. You conquer planets. We turn planets into weapons if we have to. You made a mistake when you attacked New Boston, Jack continued. Not because you failed to conquer it, but because you showed us you are a threat. And humans do not tolerate threats. We eliminate them. Jack's face was serious now, all traces of the tired old man gone. Here are your options. Option 1. Surrender every ship at this base. Release all prisoners. And withdraw from this sector permanently. We will imprison your warriors, treat them well, and release them in a few years. You will go home with a warning. Never attack humanity again. Option 2. You fight. And if you fight, we will show you what 3 million years of evolution as persistence predators really means. You can be fast. You can be strong. But we will never stop coming. We will adapt to every tactic you use. We will learn from every battle. We will keep fighting until one of us is extinct. And I promise you, Commander, it won't be us. Vexlar felt something break inside him. It was his pride, shattering like glass. He looked around his command deck at the faces of his crew. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes, in the way they held themselves. The mighty Krell, who had never known defeat, were afraid. Why? Vexlar asked. Why are you like this? Jack's expression softened slightly. Because our planet tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. Ice ages, predators, diseases, volcanoes, meteors. Earth threw everything at us, and we survived by becoming unkillable. We are not stronger than you. We are not faster. We are just too stubborn to die. And when you attacked our colony, you did not just threaten human lives. You reminded us what we are beneath all our civilization and culture. You reminded us that we are the descendants of prey animals who decided to become predators instead. You reminded us that we are the children of ancestors who survived the last ice age by wearing the skins of animals that tried to eat them. Jack leaned closer to the camera. So here's the truth, Commander. You are not facing Earth's military. You are facing 3 million years of evolutionary spite. And we are very, very good at holding grudges. The transmission ended. The human fleet waited in silence, their weapons armed, but not firing. They were giving the Krell a choice. Sharlix turned to Vexislar. Commander, what are your orders? Vexlar looked at his officers. He looked at his damaged ships. He thought about the Krell warriors who had died at New Boston, fighting an enemy that should have been weak but turned out to be anything but. He thought about the humans who threw themselves at Krell ships without hesitation. About the colonists who fought to the last breath. About the fleet that followed them across space without stopping to rest. He thought about what the old human had said. Persistence hunters. They never stop. Never give up. Never forget. Open a channel, Vexlar said quietly. The comm officer did as ordered. Vexlar stood in front of the camera, his whole body feeling heavy. This is Commander Vexlar of the Krell fleet. I am surrendering all ships under my command. We will release all prisoners and withdraw from this sector. We accept your terms. There was a long pause. Then Jack's voice came back over the speakers. Stand down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Anyone who resists will be killed. Anyone who cooperates will be treated fairly. This is your only warning. The Krell ships powered down their weapons. Human boarding parties landed on each vessel. They were professional and efficient. They did not gloat or celebrate. They just did their job, securing the ships and taking the Krell warriors into custody. Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the Devourer's Pride and watched as Krell warriors were led away. Vexlar was the last to leave. He stopped in front of Jack. How long will you hold us? The Krell commander asked. 5 years, Jack said. Maybe less if you cooperate and show genuine understanding of what you did wrong. You will be treated well. Fed, housed, given medical care. We are not monsters, Commander. We are just protective of our people. What will happen to my species? Vexlar asked. Will you hunt us? Will you destroy us? Jack shook his head. No, we will let you go home with a message. Tell your people what happened here. Tell them that humans are not prey. Tell them that we are peaceful by choice, not by necessity. And tell them that if they ever attack us again, we will respond with everything we have. Not just weapons. Not just soldiers. Everything. Our entire species will mobilize, and we will not stop until the threat is eliminated. But if your people can accept peace, if you can coexist with us without trying to conquer us, then we will be good neighbors. We will trade. We will share knowledge. We might even become friends. But it is your choice. Peace or extinction. Choose wisely. Cropson Lees. Cropson Lees. Vexlar nodded slowly. He understood. The humans were giving the Krell the same choice Earth had given them millions of years ago. Adapt or die. Survive or be forgotten. The Krell had thought they were apex predators, but they had just met something higher on the food chain. I will deliver your message, Vexlar said. And I will recommend that my people choose peace. Good, Jack said. Now go. Your guards will take you to your holding area. As Vexlar was led away, Sharlix approached Jack. She had been silent during the whole exchange, watching and learning. May I ask you something? She said. Sure. You spoke about human persistence, about how you never give up. But you also spoke about choosing to be better, about trying to move past violence. Which is the real humanity? The builders or the destroyers? Jack thought about that for a moment. We are both, he said finally. We are a species that spent millions of years learning to survive on a planet that tried to kill us. That made us good at destroying things. But we are also a species that looked at the stars and decided we wanted to go there. That made us good at building things. We are both. Always. The trick is choosing which side to show. And when do you show the destroyer side? Charlix asked. Jack's expression grew hard. When something threatens our children. When something attacks our homes. When something makes us choose between dying or fighting. That is when we remember what we are. That is when we become supreme predators. Charlix nodded. She understood now. She had seen it at New Boston. Teachers making bombs. Doctors sacrificing themselves. Pilots ramming ships into the enemy. Ordinary people becoming warriors because they had no choice. That was the human secret. They were all warriors. Every single one of them. They just chose not to act like it until they had to. Thank you for the lesson, Charlix said. I will remember it. Make sure your people remember it too, Jack said. Because we would rather be friends than enemies. But we are very good at being enemies when we need to be. The human fleet held the Krell position for 3 days, until the Krell battle fleet arrived. When they did, they found their defeated warriors in human custody, and a simple message waiting for them. The message explained what had happened at New Boston. It explained the surrender, and it explained the choice the Krell now faced. The Krell High Command chose peace. They signed a treaty with humanity, agreeing to withdraw from the contested sector and never attack human colonies again. The captured warriors were returned 5 years later, just as promised. They brought stories with them. Stories about the humans who never gave up. Stories about supreme predators. Those stories spread across the galaxy. Other species heard them. They learned about Earth, the death world. They learned about human history, the endless wars, and impossible survival. They learned about human psychology, the strange combination of cooperation and competition that made them both dangerous and valuable as allies. And they learned the lesson that Jack Morrison taught the Krell. There are predators in the galaxy. Fast predators. Strong predators. Smart predators. And then there are humans, who are not the fastest or strongest or smartest, but who will keep coming long after everyone else has given up. Jack Morrison retired to a quiet colony world after the Krell incident. He spent his remaining years in peace, tending a small garden and occasionally visiting schools to talk about his experiences. He died at the age of 79, surrounded by family and friends. At his funeral, they played a recording of his interrogation with Vexislar. The part where he said humans were supreme predators. The part where the Krell laughed at him. The part where he smiled that knowing smile and said they would regret it. And they had. The Krell had learned. The galaxy had learned. Humanity was not to be trifled with. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they simply refused to lose. Years later, a young Krell warrior visited Earth. He was part of a cultural exchange program, learning about the species that had defeated his people. He stood in a museum that documented human history, staring at exhibits about Earth's harsh environment, about human wars, about the long climb from prey to predator. A human guide approached him. "What do you think?" she asked. The young Krell was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I think my ancestors were foolish. They saw old humans and thought they were weak. They did not understand that those humans were old because they were survivors. And survivors are the most dangerous creatures of all." The human guide smiled. "You learned the lesson then. There one for. Create. The Laun." "Yes," the Krell said. "I learned. Humans are supreme predators, not because you are stronger or faster, but because you never stop. You never quit. You never accept defeat. And that makes you terrifying. It also makes us good friends," the guide said gently. The Krell nodded. "I will remember that. My people will remember that. We will choose peace." "Good," the guide said. Because we would rather build together than fight. But we can do both. And we are very, very good at both. That was the legacy of Jack Morrison and the Battle of New Boston. Not just a military victory, but a lesson for the galaxy. Humanity was not interested in conquest. They were not interested in domination. They were interested in surviving, exploring, and building. But if pushed, if threatened, if forced to choose between dying and fighting, they would fight with everything they had, because they were persistence hunters from a death world. Because they had spent millions of years refusing to die. Because they were, in the end, exactly what Jack Morrison said they were. Supreme predators. Man-fleet fought with perfect coordination. Ships covered each other. Fighters swarmed. Krell vessels, like insects. Human boarding parties didn't try to capture ships. They just targeted critical systems and then evacuated. One human destroyer was crippled early in the fight. Instead of retreating, it positioned itself between a Krell battleship and the human carrier. It took hit after hit, its shields failing, its armor melting. But it did not move. It stayed there until the carrier launched all its fighters. Then, it exploded. Within 30 minutes, 4 more Krell ships were destroyed. 3 were crippled. Vexlar's fleet was being torn apart by an enemy that fought like nothing he had ever faced. They did not care about honor. They did not care about losses. They cared about winning. "Commander, we must retreat," Charlotte said urgently. Vexlar's pride wanted to refuse. No Krell commander had ever retreated in 3 centuries, but his survival instinct was stronger. All ships, jump to hyperspace. Retreat to the staging base. Ruv. The surviving Krell ships fled. They left behind their dead, their damaged vessels, and their pride. As they jumped away, Vexlar heard something over the open comm channels. It was a human voice, calm and cold. "They're running. Good. Track their trajectory. Follow them. Let's finish this. Children. And there is nothing in this universe that will make humans more dangerous than threatening their children. Nothing. Grow. 2. You are one old man on a ship far from home," Charlotte said. "What can you do about it?" Jack smiled that knowing smile again. "Me? Nothing. I'm exactly what your commander thinks I am. An old man who is tired and weak and near the end of his life. But I'm not alone. There are billions of humans out there. And when they hear that you attacked New Boston, when they hear that you hurt our people, they're going to remember what we are." "And what is that?" Charlotte asked. "Survivors," Jack said simply. "We are survivors from a death world, who refuse to quit. And you're about to remind us why we built all those weapons we promised not to use." Vexlar was quiet now. He looked at Jack with new eyes, like he was seeing something he had not noticed before. "You speak as if your species is still dangerous. But you have become peaceful. You make treaties. You explore rather than conquer. You are not the humans of your past." Jack's smile disappeared. His face became serious, hard. "We're exactly the humans of our past. We just try to control it. But when something threatens us, when something hurts our people, we remember what we are. We remember that we come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. We remember that we survived by being meaner, tougher, and more stubborn than everything else." He leaned forward as much as his restraints would allow. "You want to know what makes humans supreme predators? Here it is. When a Krell fights, they fight until they win or die. When a human fights, they fight until the enemy is gone, not defeated, gone, extinct, erased from history. We have driven dozens of species to extinction on our own world. Not because we had to, because we could. Because they were in our way, or we wanted their resources, or sometimes, just because we felt like it. And now," Jack said, his voice dropping to almost a whisper, "you've attacked one of our colonies, you've hurt our people, You've reminded us what we are under all our civilization and culture. You've woken up something that we've spent centuries trying to keep asleep. No. Vexlar stepped back. Not just stubborn, Jack said. Persistent. There's a difference. Stubborn means you don't listen to reason. Persistent means you don't stop until the job is done. And humans never stop. Charlix made a sound, a sharp intake of breath. She was reading something on her screen, something that made her scales go pale. The other Krell noticed and turned to look at her. Commander, Charlix said slowly. You should see this. The human is not lying. Earth's extinction records show that humans killed dozens of species on their own world. Species that were bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than them. They hunted creatures to death that could have killed them easily. Vexlar walked over to look at the screen. His eyes moved across the data, and his expression changed. Jack watched him and kept talking. We didn't have claws, Jack said, so we made knives. We didn't have scales, so we made armor. We didn't have speed, so we made ourselves run longer than anything else. You see, that's what makes humans supreme predators. We don't just use what we're born with. We make ourselves better. We adapt. We learn. We change. And most important of all, we never forget who tried to hurt us. The room was quiet now, except for Jack's voice.